Hello everyone, this is IKG Productions here with the finale of Turnabout Podcast. I am extremely excited to deliver you this action-packed end to this podcast series. And with that, I'm going to individually introduce our guests, that's right, plural, for the evening. This is the largest we've had yet. It's me and 3 others. So with that said, Zerogaming Blue, introduce yourself.
Well, you didn't sound excited, that's for sure. Hello, I am Zerogaming Blue. I record stuff on YouTube. I'm also an editor for Team Turnabout, and that's about it. I'm a game dev student, so yeah, it's a hard job.
I believe it, but that's cool. That's cool stuff that we can relate to. A lot of content consumers here might also be watching Team Turnabout, and that's awesome. So with that said, I'd like to introduce my next guest as well, Akai.
Oh, me next. Oh boy. Okay, hi, I'm Akai, or Moritz, and I do stuff for Team Turnabout too.
Excellent. And last but not least, Nick.
I do stuff sometimes for Team Turnabout. I kind of just like an overseer along with someone else, just kind of making sure everything's good.
That's right. In fact, you were on the original team of the Shield of Justice. Isn't that correct?
Yep.
Yeah, it's true. You've seen a lot. You've seen this project go through a lot. So, viewers, you might have a hunch as to what our topic is. Well, it actually might be a bit broader than what you expect. We're going to be talking about, for episode 20 of Turnabout Podcast, is we're going to discuss some of our favorite or least favorite aspects. It depends on what we're currently feeling about them at the moment. But basically, we're going to discuss the Ace Attorney fanbase, but also, and first, we're going to talk about Team Turnabout's The Shield of Justice in a very sort of specific sense as to not impede on an upcoming video that will be coming to Team Turnabout, which will be more of a discussion/interview about what we do. So with that said, we're going to roll right in for a free-flowing discussion. Now, gentlemen, I would like to tell you, as the leader of Team Turnabout, that I really enjoy working with you guys. Now, we're all really busy, and we're not always, doing work towards the project because, it's not a job. It's a fun thing. But there's usually always something going on every couple of days to pay attention to. So something I thought that might be interesting to talk about with working on an Ace Attorney fan project is, how do you sort of see the project in your mind? I mean, it's one thing for me to give my vision, but how do you interpret the project? When you think about the Shield of Justice, how do you categorize it? How do you think about it? I'd be very curious to hear some of your responses.
All right, I guess I start. Well, as a newbie to anything related to Ace Attorney fanbase, I mean, it's just not an editing project for me. I do other editing stuff, mainly just my After the Hype Dies Down series, which is just video editing, which is way more generic and less intensive than anything that IKG throws at me. So it's just another editing project for me. I've never really done anything super specific that's like, oh, video editing is like my super big passion. Like, it's fun to edit every once in a while, but at some point you kind of just, your butt starts hurting. You're like, I need to use my legs.
Indeed. Would anyone else like to add to that?
An old flame that I like to keep an eye on sometimes. Not exactly anything I'm super attached to or involved with anymore, but
right.
Something that used to revolve around my life, I should say. That
not since the days of '89.
Exactly, back in Nam. But
back in Nam.
Well, Nick, I'm glad that you had that perspective. I was kind of hoping you did because, you're an advisor now, so you're not, really busy doing a ton for the project. But I like how you described it, just kind of keeping tabs on it, just seeing like this old, beloved project, just to see it still trudging along. That's really cool. I'm really glad.
Enjoying retirement.
He's making us work like a real entrepreneur.
Does it feel Does it sort of feel like retirement from the Shield of Justice?
A little bit, but
Interesting.
it's also a web series, so I don't know if I'd call it exactly retirement. But
And Akai, how do you sort of see the series? Also, the other two explain what their role is, which I completely forgot to mention. So why don't you mention your roles as well?
All right. Well, to me, the Shield of Justice is my entire life, and also, I just have my hands so deep in it, I suppose, because I'm doing so many things for the project, and it's grown into something that I can sort of, I don't know exactly how to describe it, but I just love it, I guess is the best way I can put that. And so I do animation design. I sort of help with script checking, things like that, and I'm working on doing video editing as well.
That's right. Well, I'm glad you're so passionate about the project as well. You really do a lot, it's true, especially with animation design. Currently, for the most part, that's what you've been prevalent in working on. So yeah, Akai, everybody watching, is someone who he just comes to you and just keeps asking for more work. I think everyone has seen this in the Team Turnabout development server, Discord server. Like, Akai, you are always just eager to just work on stuff, you know?
To the point of where it might become a problem later on, but not now.
Yeah, it's, I mean, you just keep going, and I'm like, yeah, of course I have stuff to give you.
Yeah, of course I have stuff to give you. This pain never ends. It's a never-ending cycle.
The closest the Shield of Justice gets to a job is like when I'm like, oh, of course I have stuff to give you. Like, here's a bunch of assignments. Go.
You're making us work. You and Nick are the real entrepreneurs of the group. You are lucky that you have two of the lackeys here for you.
And I guess that did come with the cost of my own mental health, but it's worth it.
No, it's not, Akai. Please don't.
No, it's not. We've talked
Akai,
about this, Mr. Akai.
Seriously, I'm sorry, but like, real life is a thing, and
What?
you're also way younger than any of us, so like, there's that too.
You know, it's something that Akai and I have been talking about a lot, and it's something I also want to talk about, the Shield of Justice. As you might expect, it is a taxing project. I think part of it is definitely mental, because while you are doing a lot of work, I think what really doesn't help is the fact that we don't, and this is not inherently a problem, by the way, but we don't output content very quickly at all. But I think there's something really motivational and really exciting to see an episode come out. And we all had that experience, you know, these, especially the two new members here, Zerogaming Blue and Akai, was episode 3. Seeing that come out was really exciting, especially because you had some involvement in that. You know, you said, yes, that was my scene. You know, that was what I put in. But I think, you know, it's a very taxing project. And I've talked to Akai many times about, you know, a concern for, you know, just mental well-being, and that's not singling him out. I'm guilty of this as well, and so are others on the team. It's something that you really have to keep on track if you, or in check, if you're going to have a fairly, you know, detailed and intense, for lack of a better word, fan project. So that goes beyond it being an Ace Attorney fan project. That is an absolutely universal idea. So spin that in sort of a PSA kind of way, because I think that's not something that's talked about as much as it probably should be in the regards of the fan project area.
Oh yeah, by the way, in the credits for hopefully future episodes as well as episode 3, I'm listed as artificial mainly because that's just my Discord name. So like, I have an identity crisis. It's like Split, except I'm not killing people.
IKG, what you said just now, I think honestly could apply to just doing YouTube in general. instead of like narrowing it down to just fan project. I really think that mentality of this isn't the be all end all. Your mental health comes first. Really applies to just YouTube as a whole.
I'd say it applies to any hobby whatsoever.
Well, I think you're both right. I do.
So yeah. Please don't, like, if you're just kind of as a college student, balance your time. Make sure that you're doing things like a variety of things. It's something that can suck your first year, mainly because you're dealing with dorms and you're not having like as much availability for what you want to do. But
right,
them's the breaks.
So with that said, what are some of your favorite aspects of the Ace Attorney fandom?
I'd say the fact that it...
Favorite's a strong word.
Parts that we like, that's an easier topic to discuss.
Fair enough. By all means, go ahead.
The memes.
Okay.
The memes.
The memes, I guess. Except for the ones that actual Ace Attorney Twitter posts. They're like 3 years behind. They are like 3 years behind on every meme on this planet.
So, like, essentially any Twitter account whatsoever.
Yeah.
Every branded Twitter account? Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, to throw my hat into the ring, one of my favorite, just overall aspects of the fandom is and it's only a portion of the fandom, but it's the portion, and this comes as no surprise, but dives into the games and talks about the characters and plots. This is what 3A was founded upon. After I scrapped the old idea of what 3A was and what started to shape it into a review, was I wanted to see this fandom take the series more seriously. Like, I wanted there to be some actual discussion going on, rather than, ha ha ha, almost Christmas means it wasn't Christmas. Like, yeah, I get it, it's funny, but, like, the series is much more than that. It's much deeper than that. It's a lot better than that, actually. And I know some people who would disagree with that, even as fans of the series, who have written me excellent arguments as to why Ace Attorney is just a silly series that shouldn't be taken seriously. And it was one of the best, like, pieces I've ever read. Something I completely disagree with, but it was so well written. But for the people that do feel like me, I really enjoy having those discussions. I've met so many friends and colleagues from discussing Ace Attorney in this way alone. That's why I'm just so thrilled to have that discussion aspect of this fandom, and other fandoms that, have that as well.
I have a feeling that that IKG is going to be just writing his college dysentery on, like, here's the original trilogy of games. Here's why all of them are fantastic and all of them are 12 hours long.
Okay, well, I think that well, in terms of that argument, I'd have to fully read what both of you would bring up and discuss. But if you're like giving me the general idea that Ace Attorney should be taken more seriously, and Ace Attorney should be, or considered, shouldn't be as taken seriously because it's silly, I honestly think both are right. But I think there's a better way to describe how the games are. The game's tone, a lot of the time, is very silly, comical, but it knows how to be a mature series. I do agree that Ace Attorney, though, should be taken more seriously in a matter of respect. I think that
that's exactly what I mean.
The series doesn't garner as much respect as it should for being one of the most well put together, well thought out stories, games. I mean, they're kind of on the gameplay side. They're kind of there's not much there, but the entire game is the story. So in terms of the world, the franchise as a whole, I don't think it garners enough respect. Like, the fact that Phoenix Wright isn't in Super Smash Bros., for example, is a gigantic disrespect to me, in my eyes.
Listen,
that's
we
just
still
me.
have 2 more characters. It's possible.
It's possible. Fingers crossed.
Our Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3 already did it, so, like, Smash is very
God.
possible. I also, here's the main thing, is, for me, it's a bit more middle of the road. I don't have any particular strong attachments towards Ace Attorney. It's a game that I just happened to pick up because my brother had on his DS. As a person who's played only the trilogy and then Apollo Justice. So what you could tell is I'm not exactly well versed in the entire niche or whatever, but I understand enough to the point of where I can kind of hold my own in an Ace Attorney discussion. I just personally think that as a game dev student who views different genres as different ideals, what Ace Attorney does better as a visual novel is just the fact that its writing is very creative, and the fact of how many jabs and references they throw into Ace Attorney. If you really read it, there's a good amount of references that are thrown in. There's also It also fluctuates between tones, like Nick said, pretty well. But the main thing with me is that I don't really have much of a reason to replay it outside of maybe 3 years or 5 years down the line of me trying to remember something.
So this is sort of turned it into a bit of a what we like about Ace Attorney discussion, but I'm more curious about what aspects of the fandom that you like. So Akai, you haven't said much yet. Is there anything about the fandom that just you really like whether it's like the Phoenix Wrong sort of video series, whether it's sort of like fan projects along the lines of the Shield of Justice, like taking like place of it, sort of like a fan fiction kind of thing. Like what are some of the things about the fandom that you just really like that you'd like to share?
Well, I've been in this fandom since I was 8 years old, and honestly, the thing I like most is the dedication to doing creative things. So yes, things like the Shield of Justice, and the fact that I can take 3D models from the games and put them on my computer and look at them and do stuff with them is just amazing. Shows real commitment and dedication, at least to me. So
excellent. Yeah, and I think all four of us can attest to seeing this dedication. I think that's a good way to tie into how you work on the Shield of Justice. You know, you really appreciate the fact that you have access to that, and I think it's really cool. You know.
Real quick before we transition over to Team Turnabout, I actually did have one other thing, which was a good amount of my friends that I've made through my college actually have had some inspired to become game developers from playing Ace Attorney. So it's just something that is a little odd to me, mainly because game dev is very much about trying to tie you controlling the player and also story. And the fact that Ace Attorney is such a narrative-driven game to the point of where you really can't, you don't really do much outside of like pick options and whatever. You still have like good and bad endings technically, but it's so narratively driven to the point of where it's still surprising to me that people say like, "Oh, I became a game developer because of Ace Attorney." But I completely understand of why exactly people hold the series dear to their heart. It's a very, very funny series, and it also handles current topics really well, pretty well, even though it was written in since like 2001. So it's just something that I thought I would throw in because I could.
Okay, perfect. With the Shield of Justice, I've been working ahead on some of the scripts casually in recent times, and I found that what I like to do is I try and build upon the continuity that we kept, which is, you know, everything from PW through Investigations 2. And I really like to kind of build upon that and sort of incorporate those what ifs. Like, what if we got to see this character after this game? How would they be different? How would they be the same?
yes, so there's a creator by the name of Turnabout Robin, and through numerous conversations with her, she's expressed to her audience that the Ace Attorney fandom, she's not like that into it, I guess. She feels like it's very toxic, and that people can't respect other people's opinions. And while I certainly see where she's coming from with that, I also think that with any fandom, that's going to happen. But Ace Attorney is no different. And there's so much more than those few petty people few bad apples, then I'm sorry, I'm having trouble articulating right now, so you can just move on.
To piggyback on that, I think, and I see it. I see that point that Robin made. I see it because was so closely involved with trying to interact with the Ace Attorney fan base a couple years ago. You know, the Court Records forums, YouTube, anything I could get my hands on that was Ace Attorney, and I did see a lot of that. Not dropping any names, but I did see a lot of people who, I don't want to say bigger names, bigger figureheads in the community, but they kind of were, you know, very, very bad behavior, very unprofessional behavior for people who arguably you could say were role models within the community. And a lot of stuff, just a lot of fights, a lot of really, you know, nasty people for no reason. So I get it, but I also think that it's kind of overblown because the Ace Attorney fanbase is such a niche thing to begin with that the vocal minority really stick out because there's so few people outside of that.
Honestly, I'm just kind of like, when you said that, I was like, yep, that's just a smaller version of the Fire Emblem fan base, which was until Three Houses came out, but like, whew, boy, was it not a great place. I would delve into it, but, you know, not really related, so...
It just comes
I
in
think
with the
you could
territory.
say these things, yeah, you know, you can say these things about most fandoms, and that's okay. I think it's important that we be upfront that I'm not, you know, we are not here to say, the Ace Attorney fandom, it's a perfect place where all pleasant things happen. No,
Please,
it's
just read
not.
the book Utopia. That's where it's going to be.
And so, what I believe is important is that we're honest. And, you know, I want to say something. If you're noticing, viewers, I'm having a bit of a hard time this podcast because I realize that this is the last one, and I also feel that it's a very complicated topic, even though it might not seem it. I just want to say that the Ace Attorney fandom has done so much terrible to me, for lack of... that was just terrible grammar, but... the Ace Attorney fandom, when I was much younger, a fool who didn't know what to do online or how to really speak to people I didn't know, I made some mistakes, been very impolite, and just burned a lot of bridges. And this is when I was like 12, so, you know, I'm cutting myself slack, but like at the same time, I don't forget, you know, that, you know, where are, you know, things used to be for a time in my life. And the Ace Attorney fandom, you know, I started playing the series in 2013, so I was actually 13. And I was involved with the Google Plus Ace Attorney community. Now, that's how far back we're going, guys. You know, Google Plus.
Wait, hold up. We have an... beep, beep, we have an old man alert over here.
Yeah.
Get out of here.
Yes, and I know I'm heavily contributing to this podcast having a different feel from the previous ones, perhaps a bit looser, but it's important. I want to show you some of the vulnerability that comes in making videos like this. So what I think is important is I look at how I started back then, but I use that to change how I have been. It's a very obvious lesson, but it's really important too. So even though it's not specific to Ace Attorney, the fact that it was the Ace Attorney fandom that I did start to, you know, communicate online and things like that, you know, it's an important part of my sort of online presence. To me, that is the absolute beginning. But as well, when I really think about a beginning online quote-unquote presence, it does start with this channel. Even though technically, yes, it does go back to this Google Plus community. You know, I also want to mention something else about the fandom before I pass it back to you guys. Sorry.
You're all good.
It's just... Okay. I think what's probably best to explain is why I put so much of an emphasis on Ace Attorney on the channel too. Don't worry, it's related. I think because, again, tying back to why 3A exists, I also wanted to put a focus on Ace Attorney just sort of as a tribute, just to sort of, sort of do justice to the creators in the series. I don't mean that in the full extent, because I'm not putting myself, like, up there as, like, whoa, I'm giving this series, justice, my blessing,
One of the Ace Attorney gods among men.
Yeah, like, no, but, like, at the same time, even though it's a personal thank you, it's a personal appreciation piece sort of thing. So, I do value a lot about the Ace Attorney fandom. It comes with all of the problems that you would expect a fandom to have, but I've either learned a lot from it or have also had good experiences. And if it weren't for the Ace Attorney fandom, I wouldn't have made this podcast series, the channel wouldn't exist, I would have never met these people in this call, and I wouldn't have met some of my best friends to this very day. Again, not necessarily related to the fact that it is the Ace Attorney series in some of those cases, but it was still this series that I ended up on this path. It really did change my life, and that's why I'm having a hard time articulating this.
Man, you stole the words right out of my mouth, honestly. Because I was gonna.
Sorry.
No, not in that way. I mean, I was gonna follow up by saying that it's a double-edged sword for me because Ace Attorney and its fan base, mostly the games themselves, but the fan base has honestly changed my life forever. I've had so many different experiences that this series and the people who are fans of it were the catalyst of, meeting my best friends, Augie, so who's not here, but met him because of Ace Attorney, one of my best friends in the whole world, love him to death. Just an example. So many people, so many opportunities, so many experiences, and it's all because of this one thing. I mean, Ace Attorney changed me as a person too, not even just like the opportunities it gave me, but it changed me as a person. It made me started to think more confidently, maybe more just like it's themes and stuff like that of believing people and stuff like that. It really got to me and it really changed as a person. So that's why, even as my interests move on, I'm still incredibly grateful for the series and partly of the fans of it. And yeah, I think that's all I had to say.
Man, well, I feel left out now, mainly because I don't like. With my experiences of Ace Attorney, it's the least connected out of all three of the other three. It's mainly because I got into this series, I want to say maybe 3 years ago. Not really all too late. Not really all too early.
Wow, youngin.
It's because it's honestly just something that I really don't have a very strong connection to, mainly because there's a lot of different series that I grew up with, mainly because I grew up with a Nintendo console as well, since I saw my brother play Ace Attorney. That was the earliest that I've seen of the that was the earliest that I've seen of the game. But I really just grew up on less stuff like Mario, Zelda, Fire Emblem, whatever. But I can see why people hold Ace Attorney to such a high value, mainly because its narratives, its characters are really, really good. Like, Nick for me is like for Nick, Phoenix is really probably is a motivator. For me, he was just another good character that I just liked.
You had me confused.
There wasn't really. yeah, I was about to get confused, but no, I didn't. I saved myself at the last second, just like Phoenix does with most of his trials. Case 2 of Ace Attorney 1.
Accurate.
I mean, back of the receipt, seriously. Straight up, it was just like a ghost told him, "Hey, look at this," and he's like, "Oh, that's what I was supposed to do."
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, thanks. But it's just essentially I like Nick, I like Maya. I feel like Edward is a good rival. Like, there's not really much that I have that's super personal connection, but I can see why people hold this franchise up to a high value. It's how I hold Fire Emblem, because I know I'm going on an unrelated topic over here. We're venturing into dangerous waters on this podcast. But if it hadn't been for FE7, which is Blazing Sword, on the GBA, and it hadn't been for Path of Radiance, I probably wouldn't be the person that I am today. So it's just something that I can, as an outsider, and more so starting to encroach into the circles, not encroach, go into the circles. It's something that I can see, but it's something I don't have a personal attachment to. So all I can say about Ace Attorney is, yeah, it's a decent franchise. It's not really worth replaying until maybe 5 years down the line, because you probably forgot a lot of things. But on your second playthrough, a lot of the shock is just gone. So like, as games, they succeed in what they're supposed to be, because they're supposed to be visual novels, and I really play games for both the gameplay and the visual novels. Since the gameplay itself is super simplistic, there's not really much to critique about it. It's just you pick options, you kind of click on things, whatever. It's a point and click visual novel. The best part about it is honestly just the trial sections, because sorry.
To get things back on track, I just want to say that I think it's really nice that you see the reasoning behind how passionate people are, for the Ace Attorney series, by connecting it to how you feel about Fire Emblem and how much
it's
Ace
just how
Attorney,
I feel about other series.
Yeah, and that's fantastic. I mean, when I played Fire Emblem 7, for example, I thought it was a really great game, but nothing, that shook me to my core in some sort of way, and that's, just how it goes sometimes.
That's
so
subjectivity,
I think,
baby.
Yeah, that is subjectivity. And so I just want to mention that I really appreciate you having that different nuanced perspective. That's really nice. So with that said, Akai, specifically about the fandom of Ace Attorney, what are some of the things that you've gotten out of it?
Well, this is an extremely personal story, if you don't mind.
By all means, whatever you'd like to
ahead.
So, like I said, I got into the fandom when I was 8, by chance. I looked at someone playing some lawyer game, and I was like, that's cool. And so over the years, it had sort of become something that helped me through. I said earlier that my mental health is admittedly not the best in the world, and Ace Attorney has really helped me through that. And I'm pretty sure that without Ace Attorney, and some other video games too, but mainly Ace Attorney, I probably would have killed myself at 11 years old, or even a couple months ago. So that's sort of what it is for me.
Right, man.
That's a lot to take in.
Yeah, but you know what? That really says something about the series' impact on people, fans, and stuff like that. It really has a certain magic to it, and I think to link back to what Gavin said, I really think that's why people get so passionate about when discussing the series and what they like about it and what they don't like. Because I feel like with the car, which is what he just told us, it's a prime example right there. What Gavin and I, all three of us spill our heart outs about, it has that effect on people, and that's why sometimes things can go awry when discussing, or people get emotional, people get involved, people get heated, whatever you want word, adjective you want to put on it. I think it really speaks to the effect that the series has on people.
Trying not to tear up.
Oh, jeez.
That is how it goes, Nick. I couldn't think of a better way of explaining it.
Gavin, we'll give you time. Just kind of collect yourself and just.
Okay. You get really passionate about things, and I know that video games don't really matter much. I mean, it's like a kind of it's a bold
Don't
bold
underestimate
statement.
the power of video games.
Because, okay, you're talking to a person who's going to be making them for a living. Saying that video games don't matter, it's like...
As I was saying, that's an on-the-surface argument, and what I feel is that it's ultimately not true. And I think series like Ace Attorney really show the power of a good lesson the power of good morals and just positive messages. I'm all for a sappy story if it's well written. I mean, as flawed as the game is, Metal Gear Solid 4 has got a very grim and upsetting and depressing story, but it's really, really entertaining. You know, flaws aside, I'm all for it. You know, like, I'm all for a good story, whatever you're trying to do, but nothing beats a good old, you know, not just a happy ending for characters, but just some sort of positive message to take away from the experience. And Ace Attorney's done that constantly, whether it be the pursuit of the truth from the protagonists or even the antagonists like Clavier Gavin, for example, you know, or it's just passing on to the next generation, looking at Maya and look then to Pearls, these younger people we need the justice system to be intact for. You know, what starts as a brilliant parody of the Japanese legal system became something to where we want to know how Phoenix Wright is doing. You know, it's truly an evolution. And even though the series has gone through its flaws, like any series would, and we can debate where those are and where those aren't, but I think it's interesting how no matter where you see the flaw, we all agree that it has a flaw. And what I like about criticism in general, whether you're on a very high analytical debate or giving your little opinion down here, what you often notice is that you have a reason to be criticizing something, and it's something that I always forget. I'm very forgetful of this. But when I review something and write a review script, it does come back, and it's that I'm reviewing it for a reason. There's many reasons. One of my favorite reasons, and the one that I think about the most when I'm talking about the Ace Attorney series, is because I love it, and I want it to be the best it can. It's a very common reason, but I want people to think more about why they're doing what they're doing. And also, when you're getting in heated arguments with Ace Attorney fans, if you are, just remember, they may be trashing your favorite case, but it probably comes from a place of love, which is something that I would call a commonality, you know, between you and that other fan. It's just some food for thought.
I think it's just true for any... Sorry, excuse me. Okay. It's just true for any fan base, really. It's not just Ace Attorney. Ace Attorney isn't exclusive to this. There's not really many things that are exclusive to Ace Attorney, in my opinion. Then again, coming from a person who hasn't like grown up on the series, who hasn't had such a big passion for it, like, it's still there. I still really enjoy the games. Just that it's not like something that's a pillar in my life. It's mainly just that what you guys are saying is very true for a lot of different fan bases. I've gone through similar situations. For Akai, for example, if I hadn't been playing other games in my life, I probably would have killed myself as well. For Nick, for him spilling his passion, for him not being the same person. Had I not had Super Mario Sunshine, a game that is much more about an Italian plumber cleaning up goop after someone, affecting my life in a way that I'm just like, man, this is fun. I want to do this more. Like, it's just, it can be attributed to many different things, and I think that while I'm talking about like how exactly it's not a specific thing, I think it's really, really cool and really, really inspiring to see that people with ideas in their heads put it on paper and change someone's life into for the better. And I think that's always something that, in my opinion, a game developer should always strive for, and that's why I am a game developer, and that's why I want to be one. It's because I want to have that story, but about my game. I know I'm a narcissist, but it's coming from a good place in my heart.
Well, no, I hope you will be able to deliver that, because yes, it must be a great feeling for the creators. I mean, we know how we feel, but think about the creators, you know, Shu Takumi and Yamazaki just over here writing these stories, and again, other game developers included. But I think it's not to be cliche, but isn't this just beautiful? You know, just how, you know, again, I don't want to get this to be like super, super deep, but this is what makes media special, folks. Just something to consider.
Gavin, you and Super Deep are about as common as peanut butter and jelly on a sandwich. You really can't separate the two.
I don't know about that.
Gavin, you're making a 3-hour video about one case in Trials and Tribulations. I think that's enough for proof.
Okay, I know I analyzed the reticle in Star Fox Assault. Give me a break.
Yeah. Gavin,
I'm gonna say it before you do.
Gavin, I'm going to say this. You being super deep is a blessing and a curse like anything else in any human being. Because on the one hand, it's really, really interesting to talk to you about them. But on the other hand, you're just like, okay, we get it. You're kind of starting to drain me at this point.
I could ask this man, like, hey, want to go get a drink? And he'd be like, oh, what kind? When we going? What time? When we going to be home? This, that. I'm like, oh.
No, it's more so that, like, he starts analyzing, all right, well, I could go for some tea, maybe a little bit of lavender, but I'm not really a fan of the sage. However, boba, I'm very big fan. It's more so he goes like that. It's not about him asking questions. It's more so about him analyzing everything, and then from there, not being able to make a decision, and then somehow ascending to philosophy.
I can be decisive. What are you talking about?
All joking aside, Gavin, IKG is a pretty cool person.
Yeah, well, it's all wraps back around to subjectivity and what the meaning people place on certain things and how they interpret certain things. So that's what this all really comes around to. And for me, Akai, IKG, there's a lot of meaning we place in the series because of things that made us feel, things that made things we experienced, and that's basically the nutshell of what we've been discussing is the subjective meaning that we all place on stuff and how we feel about certain things.
Indeed. I think...
Can we talk about the negatives? No.
well, actually, we did really cover that pretty thoroughly at the start. I think what might be interesting is if we sort of transition a bit back to Team Turnabout. I think working through the Shield of Justice has been a really interesting ride. You could say it was a roller coaster for quite a while, but things have been very stable, thankfully. I would say something we could talk about is how we should really just relax and like talk, just have a casual call every now and then, something we can try and fit into our schedules. But I've noticed I haven't been able to talk to you guys much outside of Team Turnabout stuff. Or I should say the Shield of Justice stuff. So, it's, again, just if you're working on a fan project, just remember to take it easy. Remember to have some fun. I know Augment was trying to remind me of this when I was really stressed out.
Yeah, I was about to say, IKG, you are a huge hypocrite right now.
Oh.
I was about to say also...
Perhaps I should have revealed my conversation with Augment to you guys before now, then that might make more sense, but...
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, IKG, we get it. It's like it makes sense in your head. There was just one puzzle piece missing for us, and we were like, "What the hell are you going on about?"
What do you mean? Yeah, sorry. But again, just any tip I could give to anyone out there, if you have any sort of ambition to do something like this, just keep reminding yourself. Write it on a sticky note. I don't know. Do something. Just keep reminding yourself. Telling yourself these things once doesn't help much. It helps in the moment, but you're going to forget, those are the important things. Another thing I want to hear your guys' opinion on when it comes to the Shield of Justice is, what do you think about the show?
Now? Or just in general?
Right now, yep.
Better than it ever has been because of your direction, your vision for it. Because before,
okay,
it was glorified fan fiction. If I had to put it in a general statement, there it is.
All right.
That's rough.
Zerogaming Blue.
All right, for me, as a person who has recently just jumped onto this entire ship that might combust at any moment, Gavin, me having to work on 3 scenes for episode 4 doesn't really help much. But you know what? Them's the breaks.
Oh, that's some personal tea right there.
Yeah, here's the main thing it's not even IKG's fault. It's my fault for saying I'll do this.
I told you not to take the 3rd scene.
I
Damn
can't
it.
say
I
no.
had two
Damn it,
short
I'm
scenes, which
stubborn
equals
about
one
this.
long scene. I told you not to take the third scene.
Damn it, I'm stubborn.
And now you're doing it.
I kid you. You know how stubborn I am.
Anyways,
You know how
back on
stubborn I am
track.
about
Back on
this.
track. What do you think of the episodes?
The series itself, I like it. I've seen the first 2 episodes of The Shield of Justice, and I think it's good. I like it. I personally think that the voice acting is pretty great, especially on Gumshoe. Just pointing that out there. That's my personal favorite. I like also how Nick's voiced. I like Edgeworth's voice. It's just every single character. If I were to think of how they would be voiced, it's something that I think would pop up into mind as like maybe a third or fourth choice. As kind of like, oh, this is the voice that I would think for some people.
Okay.
It's just something that is, when you're working on it, you become more cynical about it because you're just like, God damn it, I could have done this better, I could have done that better. But at some points, you kind of have to realize that, hey, if we're ever going to try to make this perfect, episode 1 of Turnabout Classic would have never come out. So you have to kind of stop at some point. You're like, okay, you know what, this is good enough. It's something that you have to do for anything, but video editing is also something that is very major.
Yeah, a lot of video editors are guilty of that, right? And yes, it's true. And I also think that, we are our harshest critic ourselves. So yeah, it's very easy to go, I should have done that. Especially when you have something like the Shield of Justice, like say the Ace Attorney Investigations episodes. Everything's so specific, which means it just makes it harder to like watch the mistake, I guess, because everything's just so much more technical.
It feels like we have much more specific quotas that we have to hit or else we'll be fired. In which case, it just kind of becomes like, I don't know about this. This is getting a little too intense for me at points.
And that's why they're getting cut.
And that's why they're getting cut.
I'd like to reveal
I'm
to
sorry,
everybody
but
that
you are now
everyone in
on
this
the
call
chopping
has
block.
been fired. No,
I'm sorry, but all
immediately.
3 of us are on the chopping
On
block.
the chop.
Even me, I haven't done anything.
Oh no!
I quit. We throw down our mouses. I quit.
Darn. And here I thought I had the finale to a podcast series.
Podcast
Akai.
over.
Drat spoiled
What you had
again.
was the finale to our careers.
That was sad. Akai, what do you think of the Shield of Justice episodes? The 3 episodes that are currently out, and the prologue, if you want to discuss that as well. The episodes and the prologue.
Oh, are you talking to me?
Yeah, yes.
Oh, well, I like it. It's, something I've put way too much damn time into, that's for sure.
But isn't that true for all of us?
Yes.
I need to take a break, is all I'm saying.
Well, that's why you have nothing. You're not assigned anything.
Okay, to this day, I will spend up to 30 minutes looking in my 3ds Max renders folder, looking through all of my renders trying to find mistakes.
Kai, they're fine. I looked through them.
Akai. Akai. We get it.
You fixed the ones that had the little errors a long time ago, my friend. Anyways, I think you guys can see, you viewers out there, I've asked all 3 people in this call what they thought of the episodes, and it always devolved to working on them. That's something that often occurs when you're working on a project is, yes, some of these episodes, these older episodes, some of us had no involvement in, yet we still are, sort of on that mindset like, yes, I remember what it was like scrolling through those animations. I remember what it was like video editing, episode 3, but the good thing is that we all really like the series and we all really like where it's going. There's an interesting point to be made about sort of how I've been writing the scripts, I guess. I'd like to explain what I mean. When it comes to the script writing, I'm trying to be as accurate to the characters as I possibly can, but also trying to take them into sort of, new ways. And this is where my assistant writers come in. So people like Akai. Once episode 6 scripts was done, he read through it and was able to make any comments. He made a few minor changes that got implemented, and a lot of things like that. I believe there was one thing that you also mentioned you wanted to see that's a really major detail, and that's Yeah. You suggested a very big change to episode 7, and that's been implemented, and I couldn't be more happier with that. It's a really cool idea, but I can't reveal what that is.
Top secret, guys.
Just know that the big twist in episode 7, not me. Not my idea.
I have a feeling that this is also similar to how exactly so. Future projects going up over here. I'm writing my own abridged series, so I feel like it's similar to how exactly you write an abridged series because you try to keep characters to how they're specific. So, this is going to be out in the public way before exactly, maybe before, maybe after. I have no clue how exactly things go on my end. But essentially, it's like I'm doing a My Hero Academia abridged, and it's like you have to keep specific characters the same, yet try to take the plot in a different way with being confined in what you're trying to do. So, you having to change characters, it's why also you have to kind of think, okay, so what animation can go with this, or what animation can go with that, blah, blah, blah. And it's something that can be implemented, but not exactly easily.
Right.
Less easily in my case than in IKG's case.
Well, we've hit almost the hour mark. We're at roughly about 50 minutes. I was wondering if anyone had anything they would like to close out with regarding the Shield of Justice, being a part of Team Turnabout, working on the series, Ace Attorney fandom, anything along those lines.
Don't take 3 scenes. Spare yourself with this. That's the only thing I can say that's on my mind right now.
Stop asking for DGS on every Ace Attorney post ever.
There's that too. Don't do that.
I will not take that advice.
Held that in the whole time.
It was like a ticking time bomb. It just happened. It just had to come out somewhere.
I wanted to say that the whole time, but I could not find a good opportunity.
Well, you did eventually get it out. Akai, you've given us some very personal stories relating to your interaction with the Ace Attorney fanbase and the series as a whole. Anything you'd like to close out with?
No.
All right.
Man, a few
This
words.
has been a very interesting episode, I will say. So with that said, I would like to give a few closing thoughts. So, Nick, Akai, Zerogaming Blue, and I have quite a lot of differences, but we all really like the same thing at the core. We love Ace Attorney, and we love the Shield of Justice. And we're all fans of the series on some varying levels, but we are fans of the series, and I want you guys to remember, if you ever get in a heated argument, you're frustrated, like Turnabout Robin, for example, if you're just really frustrated at the fandom, don't be. Every fandom's gonna have its people like that. Find the good. They're there. Trust me. 3 of them are in this call. They're out there. And again, just remember this. That's all I'm asking. And with that said, I would like to make a brief announcement. Considering that this is the final episode of Turnabout Podcast, I'm going to come back after we say our goodbyes here to give a little closing. It's just going to be me, a little addendum and or epilogue, if you will, to this entire podcast series. Just going to thank you for everything that you've done in terms of supporting the podcast since episode 1, sort of why the series was ending, and also where Ace Attorney content will go in the future, with an emphasis on the second point of why, I decided to put Team Turnabout to an end. So, or not Team Turnabout. That would be terrible.
Gavin, you probably should have
That would be
warned about
awful.
it.
I put the dog down.
No, that's not the plan, folks. Turnabout Podcast. Ouch. Sorry. No. But yeah, Turnabout Podcast. And I'd like to be honest, and it'll be brief, but I just want to give a nice little closing to you guys. So with that said, I would like to have our guests plug any sort of content that they have, where you can find them on social media and things like that. And all of this will be in the description down below. So, Zero, why don't you go first?
You got my YouTube. There's that. You got my Twitter. I post some funny stuff on there. Mainly at this point, I don't know what exactly I'm going to be posting, like whatever it is. Uh, I retweet a bunch of art. If you want to see some good art, follow my Twitter. You're gonna see a bunch of retweets. What else do I have? That's about it. Yeah.
All right, Akai.
There's my YouTube where I post never, and that's it.
Okay. Would you like me to plug it in the description or not really?
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
All right, cool. I will do that. And last but not least, Nick.
I only really use Twitter, so you can find me at @s_Knickers15.
Okay. And with that said, I just want to thank everybody for coming on. We're going to keep working on episode 4. And yeah, this was our look into Team Turnabout and the Ace Attorney fandom. So I will see you all in a little bit. Hey everyone, this is IKG Productions back once again, and well, I am sitting here in my chair at my desk, and I have officially, as of this point, recorded all of the Turnabout podcast episodes. So it's just a crazy feeling, and I want to take a few more minutes of your time, if that's okay, and just talk to you about some things. So first of all, I want to summarize Turnabout podcast. Many of you have stuck by it from the beginning, and but I want to still talk about it briefly. The first episode was recorded on the fly. The entire idea behind Turnabout Podcast, as at least existing, is thanks to Isaac Vyers, also known as Batman11838. He was the guest on the first episode. He said, well, what if you, basically he came up with the idea of, like, what if you did an Ace Attorney podcast with a different guest each time? But the guests were really just going to be people I knew, and it wasn't going to be anything grand. And then from the second episode, in between the first and the second, I said, hey, yeah, I'll really try and develop this. And that's when I came up with some of more of the things. A few episodes later of doing that, I eventually dropped the intro that it had. Just wanted to roll into things with the music intro. And from episode 7 and onwards with Sonata, that's when the thumbnail style got refined. And pretty much it's been consistent from there. No major changes. Except, I guess the only other thing to talk about with Turnabout Podcast history is how, there was a long break between a lot of the recordings. And before episode 13 released, I decided that 20 would be the maximum number. Just based on the guest waiting list I had, on the topic pool I had, and just things like that. And yeah, I just decided that would probably be best. And from there, I spent most of the summer scheduling and arranging that. So that's the history of Turnabout Podcast right there, which is pretty interesting, I guess. I had no intentions of connecting it to 3A. I mean, of course, I'd sort of plug it, as an alternate form of Ace Attorney content. I guess I sort of see Turnabout Podcast as a supplement to 3A. 3A is the big showstopper. It's the big analysis, but for those little individual details, kind of like how Jay's Reviews would always describe a Let's Play, being that opportunity to get into just like I just really want to talk about this specific thing, off the cuff kind of thing. Then I kind of see Turnabout Podcast like that for Ace Attorney, which is why, and I want to make this clear, because recently I've gone through a lot of my side content and have privated or unlisted, but mostly privated things. Really old things that IKG subscribers from way back when they're like the Gaming Connection podcast, the Pals. You probably have no idea what those things are, and that's probably for the better. Those things are, long gone and privated. Like Beethoven renditions. Does anybody know what that is? No. Unless you're a close friend. I don't think you would know. And, but I want to be clear that Turnabout Podcast is not going to end up like one of those things. The playlist will always be public. I'll definitely still refer to it. It's just that the series itself is coming to an end in terms of new releases. Turnabout Podcast will still be on the channel, still be public, and still thrive. Maybe. But it will never be going away. So I just want to make that clear. And with that said, I would encourage any of you to revisit the playlist and just in case there are any episodes you may have missed, or maybe you couldn't watch because you didn't get to a certain game at some point, but now you have, or something like that. So the playlist will be there. I'm not at all worried about view counts or anything like that. It doesn't matter to me. Turnabout Podcast, from 13 through 20, it was mostly about this before, but from 13 to 20, it was especially just, I'm just going to do this series justice. Because I considered canceling Turnabout Podcast at that point, but I thought about the people who commented and said they really loved putting this on while they drive to work, and people just sitting at home and relaxing and listening to this. And, while there's not many of you, there's a lot of you who did comment, really like the podcast, which I'm so grateful for, really. Thank you so much. And that's why I went ahead and wanted to give it one last hurrah. Basically, actually 13 through 20 is almost half of the entire run. So yeah, I really did try and do that. But the other reason I wanted to keep going was, of course, those guests that were on that waiting list. They deserve to have their chance to to be given a platform. I wanted to give Ace Attorney fans a platform, colleagues, and just random people who wanted to join. I got to meet so many people, which was really nice. I've never had a bad experience recording any of the podcasts. Everything always clicked, and I think that shows that, when you're in a fandom, you can, that commonality, that common ground you have, that common interest, really helps bring you together. And there's a lot of people I've met who I won't name because, that's very specific, but a lot of people I've met on this podcast I've become closer to as a result. And other times it just gave me and a friend an opportunity to talk about the series publicly. And, that really, really means a lot to me. And I just want to address as one other thing, the future of Ace Attorney content on the channel. Yes, Ace Attorney analyzation is still a thing, and it still will be a thing. Just a combination of YouTube not being a priority for me at all, and also wanting to focus on other game reviews and things like that, have led to, 3A number 4 not coming out probably as soon as people expected, which is weird to say, but I understand that. It sort of almost became like an odd tradition that in late December, we had 3A number 2, and then the next year, late December, was 3A number 3. And I did actually get a comment around December, like, so 3A number 4, right? And I was like, no, it's not even in development. And I don't say this to date the video, which is why I'm going to be extremely grand when I say I don't know when, but 3A is going to continue. The only thing I can promise, because I want to do this, is 3A number 4 and 3A number 5 will be the next two reviews. Or I should say they'll be in a row. So as soon as 3A number 4 is done, the next major project for IKG Productions will be 3A number 5. Will there be like a countdown or editorial in between? I don't know. But in terms of reviews, I would promise that. I would say just please be patient with me. I know a lot of you are really eager for that Apollo Justice review, but I really need that to be superb. And again, I want it to be another quality leap forward from 3A number 3 in the scripting department and voiceover and such. I don't see an editing thing being, anything too much better, of course, but, there's definitely ways I can make that better too. So I want to have 3A number 4 have a whole new intro. I want 3A to have a whole new intro with that review. So please be patient. I hope you Ace Attorney fans will give my non-Ace Attorney content a shot as well. I would greatly appreciate that if you would. If you like my reviewing style and just the way that I tackle games, I'm sure you would enjoy like the Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon review, or, Star Fox Assault, or Home Improvement even, as a funny review. That's all I can say there. And the last point I would like to make is thank you. Thank you so much. It's because of your fan support that I kept Turnabout Podcast alive. It honestly took a lot more work than it seems. While the video editing side of things is very simple, I just cut out some ums and stuff sometimes. More so in the later episodes I did that. Pick some music, make the thumbnail. That's really it for that, right? But when it came to scheduling, to record with all these guests, especially most of these people being people I've never worked with before, some I didn't even know, that was tough. Time zones got in the way, tons of appointments and things, things that just we have to schedule around. It took a long time, and I can tell you that it wasn't easy for most of these to actually schedule and record these. But we did it. Just amazingly, we have all these different people who contributed to this series in the end. And I'm really happy to say that. Genuinely. It's really, really fulfilling to be able to tell you that that ambitious plan did work out in the end. That those voices were heard, and those ideas were expressed. And I never want it to seem like Ace Attorney analyzation is like the end-all be-all Ace Attorney analysis. Because it's not. It's not objective. It's me putting my all into it, but I want Turnabout Podcast to show that this community has got excellent ideas. And, and I hope we succeeded in that. So I really want to thank you to everybody who watched this podcast series, and anyone who stumbles upon it in the future after it's finished, because it will, still be up and everything. So, yeah, I mean, it honestly makes me a little sad that Turnabout Podcast is over. So, with that said, I'm IKG Productions, and thank you for all the support that you've given me, and I hope you have a fantastic day.